and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup.
What a week.
Mostly North Carolina, but a few other things too.
Well, North Carolina, as you probably know, has enacted a draconian anti-LGBT law. And the protests from activists and our legal groups, elected officials, and corporations were fast and furious.
I think that's a different movie title. But meanwhile, the governor of Georgia, a conservative Republican, vetoed a religious freedom license to discriminate bill, but its supporters are threatening to try to override the veto.
Nebraska rejected an LGBT rights bill, but one was passed in the Wisconsin hometown of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Paul Ryan.
He had quite a week. Trump in his hometown and an LGBT rights law.
Should we tell him what it is? Janesville.
Meanwhile, another family values politician, not in Janesville, has been caught up in a sex scandal. Why is that even a headline?
The federal government has issued new guidelines for how prisons are supposed to treat people of transgender experience.
We, along with all of you, I'm sure, are mourning the passing of actress Patty Duke, long a participant in the LGBT and AIDS movements, and a courageous voice, of course, for those with mental illness. And we will show you a couple of contrasting clips of Patty.
Saudi Arabia has ratcheted up its attacks on gay people, if that was possible.
Well, the Catholic bishops are upping their attacks in Malawi and the Dominican Republic. They're taking brutally anti-gay stances.
And we'll review 3 Broadway shows: Eclipsed with Lupita Nyong'o, Bright Star, the Steve Martin musical, and Blackbird with Jeff Daniels and Michelle Williams.
But we start with a horror story in North Carolina because just a week ago we were saying, well, maybe something will have happened by the time you see this show 2 or 3 days after we taped it. But as we were taping, the legislature was zooming into session.
Well, here's what I don't understand. I mean, this was all precipitated by the city of Charlotte passing an LGBT rights bill.
Yes.
And the fact is that there are, 20 cities in the state that have LGBT rights laws already. But this was the precipitant.
Mr. Hum.
Yes.
It is an election year.
Yeah, all right. So.
And the governor is up for re-election against the state attorney general.
And North Carolina was looking to do something like this last year. They didn't do it, so they did it. So they did it this year. But this bill turned out to be more than just, anti-trans bill or a bill that bans gay rights laws. It is extensive.
First of all, it does it repeals or forbids the type of local non-discrimination bill that includes sexual orientation and gender identity that Charlotte passed.
Yes, it forbids any locality from covering any category in the civil rights realm that the state already doesn't. And that includes veterans' rights in some cities.
They are bragging about the fact that what they've done is impose a statewide standard, and therefore it is consistent. And surely that is what everyone wants. And Charlotte overstepped its bounds by passing a local non-discrimination bill.
They also have to enforce the state human rights law, they have something called a Human Relations Committee, which the state was looking to get rid of. They said, let's hold on to that, and let's deny every person in North Carolina the right to use our human rights law to go to state court and sue for their rights. Now, you can still use federal law, but you can't use the state law in the courts anymore. This is just like unbelievably outrageous.
Yes.
And it passed, by the way, 84-25 in the House and 32-0 in the Senate because all the Democrats walked out. In the House, it got 11 Democratic votes.
And they also, in this continuing spirit of statewide consistency, said you cannot pass a local higher minimum wage than is in the state minimum wage law. You can't sue for discrimination on the basis of union membership or veterans or anything like that.
They threw everything but the kitchen sink into this bill, and this was all done in special session, which you're only supposed to call when there's an emergency. And as far as they're concerned, the emergency was in Charlotte, they're going to get into perverts are going to get into they use these terms, are going to get into the bathroom and molest your children. This is an emergency.
Well, in fact, maybe what we should do is go ahead and show what the lieutenant governor had to say about this law to show overtly how the administration was talking about the need for this bill.
This is Dan Forrest, of the lieutenant governor of the state of North Carolina, explaining.
As you probably already know, the General Assembly passed a bill to overturn the radical Charlotte bathroom ordinance. As the President of the Senate, in accordance with the state constitution, I, along with Speaker Tim Moore, called a special session to void the ordinance prior to it taking effect in April. The Charlotte bathroom ordinance was extreme in every way. Despite what you may have heard from the media, the ordinance, as it was written, would have allowed anyone of any gender to enter any bathroom or changing room at any time and legally forced every business to comply. The loophole this ordinance created would have given pedophiles, sex offenders, and perverts free rein to watch women, boys, and girls undress and use the bathroom. No decent society would allow that danger. Opponents of our action claim that there is no correlation between being transgender and being a sex offender or a pedophile. No one who supports this legislation has made that claim. The ordinance Charlotte passed to appease the transgender community was written so broadly that it legally created a mandate to allow any man, transgender or not, the legal right to enter a women's bathroom or changing room.
This is a lie.
Yes.
And that's what they're doing. They're lying about this. And you notice, did he say anything in there about the minimum wage? Did he say anything
repealing
about
civil rights?
veterans' rights, repealing some? In fact, the governor has gotten up repeatedly and said, the media are lying about this. We didn't repeal anybody's rights. Everybody has the same rights they had yesterday.
The governor has a video, and all he wants to talk about is the same thing. Restrooms, locker rooms, showers. You know, this was the same stuff that went on when they passed Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 1996. All they wanted, they kept shooting, and the news media cooperated with this.
Sam Nunn leading a delegation of the Senate into a submarine to say,
Yes.
you know, there will be too much proximity between gay people and straight people, and that's why we can't let gay people in the military.
You people have dirty minds who oppose things like this. Because what are we talking about? We're talking about a person who, based on their gender identity, on how they live and who they see themselves, daily life, using the appropriate restroom. Now we've got pictures of 3 trans men who have not undergone bottom surgery, if you want to put it that way, who have not legally changed their gender.
Their birth certificate.
Yes, these are.
This is a trans man who, by this law, is now required to use the women's restroom.
Yes. He said, and then these are other
This
trans...
is number 2, trans man now required to use the women's restroom. Do you think women are going to be happy when these guys walk into the women's room? Right. Don't you think they're going to be confused? This guy is now required to use the women's restroom in North Carolina.
Again, unless they undergo a legal sex change, essentially, and get reclassified on their birth certificate as the men that they are.
Yes, which is not easy in North Carolina, by the way. So our legal groups have stepped up, the ACLU LGBT Rights Project, the Lambda Legal, and with 2 trans male plaintiffs have filed suit against this law, claiming it is unconstitutional as a violation of the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment, equal protection clauses, and Title IX of the Civil Rights Act, which guarantees no sex discrimination as interpreted to include gender identity as part of sex and sex discrimination.
Now, there are also, the state now we'll see if the federal government really comes down hard on them, because this is a violation of Title IX.
Yes. Yes, so beyond the lawsuit, the government could step in right now and claim a violation of Title IX
and deny the state $4.5 billion in education aid. Are they going to do it? Any word on whether the administration is looking at that?
No word yet. The trans men who are the plaintiffs in this suit are just totally wonderful, charming human beings who stood up at a press conference and said, look, we understand that trans women are going to have a harder time being abused under this law, and we pass more easily, and women are going to freak out when we walk into their bathrooms.
Yes.
So we are going to take on the job of being the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, and we're very happy and proud to do it. And they're terrific heroes for stepping forward to be the public plaintiffs in this lawsuit.
Right. Now, the law, the people who passed this thought they were being very clever by going after everybody, by doing these blanket things. But there is so much evidence that they are clearly targeting trans people directly.
That's all they talk about.
That's the reason that they did it, and that subjects it to what we would call Romer scrutiny. The Romer v. Evans decision was a Supreme Court decision in 1996. I think it was 6-3, where they had repealed all gay rights in the state. They said you can't have gay rights laws in the state.
Colorado. Colorado passed a law that forbid local towns from passing gay rights laws, essentially.
Now, so it's not.
And the Supreme Court said you are singling people out inappropriately. You're not allowed to do that. You have no good reason to do it. It's strictly animus. It is hatred of LGBT people.
Are you talking about Governor Pat McCrory? Because he says we're a state of openness and diversity. Well,
you are a state of diversity, but you, Governor, are not being very open.
Well, if you want to talk about hatred, State Senator Tom Apodaca from Henderson, Republican, he's asking his staff to look into see how the General Assembly can charge Charlotte to cover the costs of the special session that they had to go through.
Wow.
Now,
corporations.
By the way, only 25% of the people in the state support this law, according to the poll.
Well, that's interesting.
Yes.
Well, again, this is generated by a desire to appease Art Pope, who is the Koch brother of North Carolina, the guy who has put this right-wing legislature into place.
While we were asleep in 2010 and the elections were being held, this was the first time they flipped the legislature in North Carolina to Republicans. 2010, folks. We're paying the price ever since. And I just want to say one thing. There has been horrible stuff going on in North Carolina for years under this legislature. They have been shredding the safety net. Now we're going to boycott it because they're against the gays. I don't know. There was plenty of stuff going on.
Voter suppression.
There was plenty of stuff going on before this, and we did not talk about a boycott.
Well, 25% support this law. This is all about the extreme right-wingers who put this group into place in the legislature. They are powerful people, but they are outnumbered in the state. And the fact that we fall for their nonsense, and by we, I mean the larger we, of course, they get away with this stuff because people don't pay attention. They're seduced by the bluster of people like Donald Trump, and they go to the polls and they just automatically pull levers without any knowledge of what they're doing.
Now, the law is strongly opposed by the Attorney General, Roy Cooper.
Yes.
And he's a Democrat, and he is also the candidate for governor against Pat McCrory. So there's a face-off of this, and the Attorney General says it's unconstitutional on its face, and I'm not defending it.
That is a brilliant move.
And
Roy Cooper, as the Attorney General of North Carolina, who is a defendant in the lawsuit brought by the ACLU and Lambda, says he will not defend this new law because it is unconstitutional.
So Governor McCrory, and you don't hear Republicans saying this too much, says, do your job. Oh, How about at the Supreme Court with Merrick Garland? Do your job. No attorney general is required to defend an unconstitutional law.
Correct.
The Obama administration did not defend the anti-gay marriage law. The Attorney General of New York years ago did not defend the sodomy law. Let somebody else defend it. It's unconstitutional.
And the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, since in a lot of trouble, did not defend the anti-marriage law in Pennsylvania. It is the job of the Attorney General of the state to decide whether he or she thinks a law is constitutional and act accordingly.
So, North Carolina, there are going to be some consequences here, and we're sorry for those of you who are not the offending parties here. Lots of cities and states have instituted travel bans of government employees to North Carolina. Edwin Lee of San Francisco, Ed Murray of Seattle, Bill de Blasio of New York, Andrew Cuomo of New York State, Washington Governor Jay Inslee, and Vermont Governor Peter Shumlin. Now, all states have problems, but this is about making North Carolina a pariah until you say uncle. That's what happened in Indiana.
The National Basketball Association has said it has now a question about putting the 2017 All-Star Game in Charlotte, unfortunately. The NCAA has tournaments scheduled there next year that they have to think about. ESPN has to think about its facilities there.
Director Rob Reiner said, "I'm not shooting any films in North Carolina anymore."
80 CEOs of corporations have written letters to the governor objecting to the bill,
yes,
including Bank of America, the largest employer in North Carolina.
Apple, Facebook, you name it.
All of them.
So yes, American Airlines, all the corporations.
Colleges are upset.
But
North
most
Carolina
of these
colleges.
corporations are also very happy with these right-wing Republicans who are in there protecting their businesses, and they have not. Most of these corporations have not talked about taking any action. Actually leaving the state, denying jobs to the state, those kinds of things. That's what's needed here.
Yes, and they're, one of the big pressure points at the moment is the High Point, North Carolina furniture market coming up in April.
The largest in the world, generates $5.38 billion to the state.
And of course, there is a large LGBT population involved in the design and decor business involved with this furniture market, including Mitchell Gold and Bob Williams, whose company is in North Carolina. They have spoken out very forcefully against this law, and people are canceling out of the High Point show in large numbers to protest this law. But there is a problem. Do you move your business out of the state?
Now the White House has expressed concern, say it sends the wrong message. Hillary and Bernie have made a joint denouncement of it.
But in fact, my favorite reaction, and I suspect yours too, is the local residents in North Carolina who have been showing up to demonstrate. And they showed up at the governor's mansion with a spontaneous grassroots demonstration. I think 5 people got arrested. We have a local news report of the demonstration at the governor's mansion.
Now, thousands of people showed up to voice their opposition to the new laws Governor McCrory's office defends the bill he signed.
WREL's Adam Owens joins us live with what's unfolded in just the last few hours. Adam?
Deborah, Ken, as you mentioned, it appears that at least 4 people were arrested. We're still waiting to get an official number from the Raleigh Police Department. This protest started earlier this evening here on the sidewalk outside the governor's mansion. Eventually, it spilled onto Blunt Street, shutting it down.
This is not over! This is not over!
In the center of this crowd of protesters, hundreds and hundreds strong, there was a small group, about a handful of people with locked arms. One by one, they were arrested and carried away.
All these people are upset. They are angry. They have been left out of the democratic process.
The protesters chanted and blocked traffic outside the governor's mansion. They are angry over the passage of House Bill 2. It does not allow transgender people to use the restroom associated with the gender they identify with. Republican backers say it's about public safety. But these people call it discrimination.
Our communities are strong, our communities are resilient, and our communities want solutions that include them.
Opponents of the bill say it eliminates many other discrimination protections for the LGBT community.
This is hate and bigotry.
Elizabeth Clement says she's not directly affected by this legislation, but she traveled from Charlotte to stand by the people in this crowd who are.
This law hurts these people, and then it hurts me.
Earlier tonight, we received a statement from the office of Governor Pat McCrory. It says, standing with North Carolina parents who are worried about the privacy and safety of their children will always be a top priority for the governor, no matter the spin by the media, pundits, or politically correct crowd. Protesters say they will continue these kinds of actions moving forward. Back to you.
Adam Owens in downtown Raleigh.
Shameless. Shameless. And he's already running ads against McCrory, is running ads against Cooper, doing all this toilet stuff and kid stuff and molestation stuff.
Well, you know, McCrory is overtly lying about the effect of this law, and he has been challenged at a news conference. He was said, well, he was asked, you say nothing has changed, but in fact, you have just repealed all these local laws. Yes. and outlawed having them. And he said, I don't know anything about that. I'll have to check that out.
Well, he did say in his statement, he said, you know, well, I didn't support everything that was in the bill, but it was an emergency and we needed it, and maybe we can fix it. Now, this is what happened in Indiana, and they eventually had to repeal it if they wanted to get businesses to stop canceling it there. So it's going to go on. The heat is on, and it should be.
Yes, it should. Now, but it took a little while for the heat to gin up. We'll talk about Georgia now, but these did happen almost simultaneously, the Georgia veto and the North Carolina law passing, and all the national media attention was on Georgia.
Yes. Badly.
We'll talk about that in a second. But North Carolina was flying under the radar for several days.
Not on Gay USA.
Well, we anticipated this happening a little casually, I must say. But
well, no, they immediately, as soon as the Charlotte law passed, they said we're going to call a special session and we're going to get rid of it.
Certainly been warning you of that. I just didn't think it was going to happen while we were taping last week. But the news media are now catching up and are being vociferous about this, but especially as they see the reaction to the North Carolina law. But it took them a little while to catch on.
And they've misreported it in many cases.
Yeah. So let's move to Georgia.
Well, Georgia was the other front. Now, Georgia's was one of those religious freedom license to discriminate bills, which are very popular around the country.
And the governor had been talking for quite some time about how he didn't like this bill, and they worked on a compromise. The compromise was still not acceptable.
He used a lot of religious language in opposing it.
He did. He said, if God has given us, rights, why does the legislature have to step in to try to amend this?
Plus, not just God, but the First Amendment, freedom of religion, is still there covering everybody.
Now, last week, I looked at the fact that, for instance, 500 plus businesses had signed a newspaper ad against this law, but I did not see Tyler Perry's name on there, which struck me as somewhat strange. So he must be watching Gay USA, because within 24 hours of our taping this show, I'm sure it's a direct connection, his production company issued a statement. He didn't come out and make a statement, which I'm still disappointed about. But
Governor Deal did come out and make a statement, and he said this bill does not reflect Georgia's welcoming image as a state full of warm, friendly, and loving people. I know Governor McCrory feels the same way about his state, but you're actually implementing it. He said it doesn't, and he also said, I don't respond well to threats of paybacks by supporters of this measure. This bill was the top priority of the religious right wing, and they are looking to do an override of his veto if they can. They need 3/5 of the legislature to call a special session to say that there's an emergency. But there's high pressure from the entertainment industry, the tech industries, and the governor's message is, take a deep breath.
It is. Well, there's a lot of speculation that he did this veto because of concerns about the state losing a lot of money from companies, for instance, not making films there anymore. But he has been talking about this
Yes.
from the get-go.
He's very pro business. And, you know, this is the big conflict in the Republican Party these days,
the point is,
nationally, the evangelicals and the business interests.
I have to believe he is smarter than Governor McCrory. Now, I don't live in either state and never have and don't know these guys up close, but that would be my speculation.
We'll find out on Election Day.
I guess we will, but I would hope that Attorney General Cooper would get a boost from his courage and insight, which...
But he's going to be hammered with these bathroom ads,
yes.
which lost us the vote in Houston.
And will we respond with things like pictures of trans men and trans women and say, do you really want this trans man in the woman's room? Do you really want this trans woman in the men's room? Or whatever.
What are you talking about? I mean,
well,
again, a lot of education needs to go on.
The softer ads have not worked.
No. All right.
All right. In Tennessee, I think we told you last week that their Religious Freedom Restoration Act, hard to even say that, had failed. But now they are pushing ahead with a specific anti-trans students in the correct bathrooms bill. This would cover not just high school and elementary schools, but colleges as well. It is advancing in Tennessee. It has not reached final passage yet, although given the track record, it could have passed 10 minutes ago, and we'd be saying that next week.
Also in Tennessee, they had a secret vote among the Freemasons there, and they voted to keep a ban on gay members. Georgia also has the ban, but Freemasons around the country are very welcoming of gays. Certainly in New York, I have gay friends who were Masons.
Right. Well, they threw out a gay married couple in Tennessee out of one of their lodges, and then they reaffirmed the ban overall on gay Masons.
Well, in Virginia, Governor Terry McAuliffe vetoed an anti-LGBT bill that was dubbed Indiana on Steroids by civil rights activists. Republican lawmakers in the Virginia legislature do not have enough votes to override.
But keep your eye on Mississippi, which is likely to be the next state passing the First Amendment Defense Act, which is another religious freedom.
I thought it was the Religious Liberty Accommodations Act. Oh, whatever.
6 of 1.
Well, faith-based groups could refuse to recognize the marriages of same-sex couples, deny children in need of homes, placement with LGBT families, and refuse to sell or rent or for-profit home to an LGBT person, even if the organization receives government funding.
You know, the one reason Deal in Georgia vetoed that bill was he said, look, first of all, it does what's already true, which is says pastors do not have to perform same-sex marriages. And second of all, we don't have a non-discrimination bill in this state, so you're free to go ahead and discriminate anyway. You don't need this bill for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nebraska lawmakers voted against or voted to shelve their LGBT rights law, but it was 26-18, so it was close. This was about workplace discrimination.
And in Wisconsin, in Janesville, the hometown of Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the United States, the Janesville City Council adopted 6-1 a non-discrimination law that includes sexual orientation and gender identity.
Right.
So they're not afraid of bathrooms.
In Louisiana, Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards plans to rescind Republican Governor Bobby Jindal's religious freedom executive order. They couldn't pass a bill there, you'll remember, so Jindal did an executive order on this, which resulted in a lawsuit from the ACLU, which allows businesses and state agencies to turn away LGBT people based on sincerely held religious beliefs.
Well, you're leading me to talk about Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz has issued his 15-point plan for religious liberty. Now, we've told you in the last couple of weeks about his Religious Liberty Advisory Council, which is full of every right-wing nut you care to name. The 15-point plan for religious liberty includes the following couple of points. When Ted Cruz becomes President of the United States, you heard it here first, he will immediately, on day one, as they say, rescind President Obama's executive order that imposed a non-discrimination policy on federal contractors that specifically includes sexual orientation and gender identity. No longer will it be illegal for federal contractors to discriminate against people on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. That is something to look forward to.
Is that what Jesus wants?
Well, according to Ted, it is. And Jesus also wants the federal government not to interpret any Title IX rules against sex discrimination as including gender identity or sexual orientation.
Did they have Title IX in biblical times?
No, and that's why it shouldn't be in the Constitution.
In fact, the Bible is full of a lot of sexist crap.
Well, that's Ted Cruz's platform as it relates to us for his presidency.
Well, he'll have other things to repeal because there are also new federal guidelines for transgender inmates. They're using the Prison Rape Elimination Act standards to require that housing decisions for transgender prisoners be made on a case-by-case basis, and that is to be interpreted as not based solely on sexual anatomy. They must seriously consider all factors relevant to keeping a person safe, including their gender identity. This is a victory for the National Center for Transgender Equality and Just Detention International. These things don't just happen, folks.
Yeah.
Our groups are busy making them happen.
And they're making it happen in Delaware, where they have decided to impose a gender identity and expression non-discrimination policy for health insurance companies, that they may not discriminate in their provision of health insurance on the basis of gender identity and expression.
In San Diego, the ACLU there sent a complaint letter to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency there, stating that the agency has been denying food to asylum seekers awaiting processing at the how do you say this? Ysidro port of entry. I'm very bad with these San Diego names. A disabled transgender Mexican woman with post-traumatic stress disorder was allegedly denied food for more than 30 hours at the port of entry. That's why we are talking about it.
Yeah. In Pennsylvania, a transgender man has reached a settlement with the University of Pittsburgh. They were throwing him out of the locker room, and they eventually threw him out of school for complaining. They have now, he lost his case at the lower level, but he was appealing that, and his case was evidently so strong that the university has now settled with him and agreed to open locker room and bathroom facilities to people on the basis of their lived gender identity.
Yes, and create gender-neutral housing.
Yeah.
And, you know, a whole working group to advise on this thing.
And in Los Angeles, we have the second case of a barber shop being sued for refusing to provide a haircut to a trans man on the grounds that we don't give haircuts to women. This is trans discrimination, sex discrimination, go down the list.
We heard a disturbing report about an alleged rape of a trans woman at the Stonewall Inn, of all places, in the restroom, or a single-serve restroom. The alleged perp is a man in his 30s who was known to the patrons, but we'll have more on that as the case develops.
Yes, and in Los Angeles, again, we have the 7th reported murder of a trans woman, trans man, my mistake, shot by his ex-boyfriend on the street. 32 years old, Courtney Davia Dawson Yoakum. 7 this year reported. In Cleveland, another domestic violence or partner violence murdered. A gay man strangled by his boyfriend. The strangler called the cops as he was in the middle of strangling his boyfriend, and the cops took 12 minutes to arrive, even though he's on the phone saying, "I am strangling my boyfriend, you might want to send the cops." The boyfriend was dead by the time the cops arrived.
Awful.
Terrible. In Georgia, we told you last week about the case of the 2 gay men who were assaulted by the boyfriend of the mother of one of them, who poured scalding, boiling water on the 2 of them.
Severe burns.
In the hospital for 10 days, skin grafts. He is now he's been indicted for aggravated assault and battery. And his defense is, I poured a little hot water on him. They were in the hospital for 10 days and had skin grafts. And in Desert Hot Springs, California, a lesbian couple who are deaf were trying to get a local woman to get off their lawn, and they were using sign language, and she became offended by their gestures and took a baseball bat and beat them. Let's see if I have their... I don't have their injuries, but it was a severe beating. She's been arrested, and their house was broken into the next day, and more violence was done to their house.
Didn't we win gay rights last year or something? No, I guess not.
I don't know.
That's
Well,
not
here's
entirely.
the good news. A major evangelical leader, Tony Campolo, who's quite famous in evangelical circles, has decided that he likes the gay people now.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe he can talk to some of these perpetrators.
We've talked about Tyler Dunnington, a former pitcher for the Cardinals minor league team, out gay, and he said that while he was on the team, he heard players and a coach talk about killing gay people, and the coach was identified as a guy named Sean McKinney, who is the coach now at Colorado Mesa University. So this has all been exposed, and he says, I would never harm anyone on our team.
I'd just talk about it.
You know, I've talked to Tyler, you know, I hope he's okay. I called him to apologize. I want him to have a good life. The school says they're not going to fire him, but will use his interest in making amends to move forward the entire campus on LGBT issues. That would be a nice result.
Okay.
And in politics, Mark Kirk, the Republican U.S. Senator from Illinois, who was endorsed by the Human Rights Campaign, has basically said that he will support the Republican nominee for president, meaning Trump, if that's the case. He's challenged by Tammy Duckworth out there, who has a 100% rating from HRC but doesn't not merit their support.
The firestorm over the HRC endorsement of Mark Kirk is only huger than the firestorm over their endorsement of Al D'Amato. But some people are confused by headlines that say HRC endorses Mark Kirk. They think it's Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Yes. And then you know all about the scandal with the governor of Alabama, Robert Bentley, and tapes of his infidelities with a female aide. And then the reason it's such a big issue is because he's such a family values right-wing nut. They were both expelled from the First Baptist Church of Tuscaloosa for this. He was elected, somebody said, as the doctor that could cure Alabama's ills, financial and moral. Well, I guess not.
Not so much.
I guess not.
Should we talk about Bayard Rustin?
Sure.
Bayard Rustin, gay black man, aide to Martin Luther King, one of the architects.
I have a picture of me and Bayard from back in 1987 when he was doing gay rights work in New York City, right before he died.
One of the architects of the '63 March on Washington. So the National Park Service has decided to put his home on the National Register of Historic Places. There he is at home.
With all of his canes and his African art, and
yes.
his partner, because they couldn't marry in those days, Walter Nagel, still lives there.
Yes, and here's where it is. It's an apartment building in our neighborhood in New York City.
Penn South. Penn South is a very famous, it was built by the International Ladies Garment Workers Union.
Yes.
In 1962, it was what they called slum clearance. They cleared out a lot of nice buildings that would be nice to have now, but they cleared them out, and they built this union housing, and they wanted it to be integrated from the start. They asked Bayard Rustin to live there. so that it would be integrated from the start.
I am just amused by an apartment building like that being on the National Register of Historic Places. Apartment 9J.
And Julius Baer has also got New York State Historic designation. They're still seeking landmark status for the city. And the Congregation Beth Simchat Torah, the gay synagogue in New York, is going to have their new dedication of their new space. I was there this morning at 130 West 30th Street. They're going to march from the village at West Beth, where they've had their headquarters for a long time, past the Protestant Episcopal Church, where they've been meeting for many years, Holy Apostles, and then on to...
what day and time?
Oh, this is going to be Sunday, April 3rd, starting at noon at West Beth, 2 o'clock for the dedication at 130 West 30th Street.
Okay.
And city council members are protesting the persecution of rentboy.com. They're protesting to the Department of Homeland Security.
All right. Can we move on to international news?
I hope
we'll
so.
have time for our Patty Duke contretemps at the end.
Okay.
In Senegal, a mob burned down university buildings after a man claimed that another man hit on him in the shower.
Austria is the only country in the world which has granted full adoption rights for same-sex couples, but not allowed the parents of these children to marry. But not allowed the parents of the children. Okay. So legal challenges say it makes children of gay couples, they use the term illegitimate, but so that's what they're suing about.
Go ahead.
No, Saudi Arabia, I mean, you don't think it could get any worse because they do already have the death penalty for homosexual acts. So they're now looking at having that for coming out online, making that a crime.
They've been prosecuting dozens of LGBT people, convicting them, sentencing them, trans people. They have quite a little pogrom going.
Some very popular bloggers there.
Maybe I shouldn't call it a pogrom, but it is.
It's
a campaign.
Yes. There's very popular bloggers there who have a hashtag now, suggest a way to kill the faggots, and it's apparently hundreds of people are responding to this. It's just, it's scapegoating for the ills.
A lot of that. In Spain, an actor who has played Jesus for 30 years in the Easter parade has been banned in Valencia from doing it again because it's suspected he's too gay.
Well, Jesus was gay, wasn't he?
He was everything.
Lived with his mother till he was 30, never married, hung out with all those guys.
And the apostles,
I'm not making a joke here.
Who knows?
John the beloved disciple.
In Mexico, the Soccer Federation is asking fans to stop their anti-gay chants in the stadiums. This has been rampant everywhere in the world.
In 2012, the Malawian president in Africa, Joyce Banda, got rid of the laws criminalizing gay sex. The Catholic bishops there have now issued a joint letter that they need to be reinstated, and we have to start imprisoning gay people again.
In the Dominican Republic, as you know, the Catholic archbishop or cardinal or whatever he is has been on a lengthy tear against out gay U.S. Ambassador Wally Brewster and his husband, who are in residence there. And it's like every day he's referring to these faggots in the newspapers.
He refers to the ambassador as the little faggot.
Yeah.
And this is on the front page of the paper every day. And schools run by the churches have banners out, Wally Brewster not welcome.
You'd think the Pope, Mr. Who Am I to Judge, would have something to say about this, but not that we know of. But dozens of U.S. representatives have signed a letter to the President of the Dominican Republic supporting Ambassador Brewster.
Right.
In Argentina, at the time Obama went to visit and do the tango, Argentina announced that it is joining the Global Equality Fund for LGBT rights, which means it's a country that contributes to the fund to promote LGBT rights around the world. That's a good thing. And in Thailand, A gay married couple, one American and one Spanish, are suing for custody of their daughter born to a Thai woman who agreed to be a surrogate for them. She now wants to keep the baby when she found out the parents were gay. The baby was born 14 months ago. The American is the biological father of the child, and they used an anonymous egg donor mom. So the woman who was the surrogate doesn't have any biological relation to this child, but she's holding on to the child, and they've been fighting this for 14 months. All right, AIDS news?
Well, in Albany, New York, they're fighting over the budget, and 6 AIDS activists were arrested outside Governor Cuomo's office for his failure to deliver on the budgetary promises to fully fund this issue of ending AIDS by 2020. They want $20 million for programs and $50 million for expanded housing assistance and nutrition programs. So stay tuned about that. And speaking of Albany, I forgot to mention that our friend Danny O'Donnell, who's an assembly member up there, he has a bill to ban all state travel to any state that has one of these religious freedom laws that discriminate against gays. But we'll see where that goes.
I will only point out that New York State does not have, it has an executive order, but not a law yet protecting gender identity and expression from discrimination.
Correct.
In San Francisco, there's a new service that's popped up. It turns out it can be hard to get Truvada as PrEP, as pre-exposure prophylaxis. A lot of doctors don't know about it. They want to put you through a lot of hoops if you
San
request
Francisco?
it. Yeah, all over this is a problem.
Okay.
So, so San Francisco, there is a new service that has been created to try to help with this. It's called NURX, N-U-R-X. You fill out a survey online on a mobile app. You have to give some blood tests. You have to give some kidney. Yes. And they will, in fact, send someone to your house.
I need a new phone.
Send somebody to your house to take your blood for testing if you want. But they will then give you a Truvada prescription and deliver it to you. They're calling it Uber for Truvada.
What hath God wrought?
Well, it's an attempt to circumvent an unresponsive system, and I think it's creative and clever. But people have a right to figure out what kind of protection they're going to use and have access to it.
Well, they've been doing a fairly good job in San Francisco in getting infections down.
All right, entertainment news.
Well, James Franco says he's gay in his art and straight in his life. And he says, I'm also gay in my life up to a point of intercourse. And then you could say I'm straight.
Okay, well, thank you for clearing that up, James. I'm going to take a detour for a second to mourn the death of Gary Shandling, who the Larry Sanders Show was the best program ever created about television. Wow. If you want to know how television operates, really,
and Ann knows,
watch the Larry Sanders Show.
I mean, we've been doing this show for 30 years, but Ann was in a lot of network television back in the day.
It was stunning how good it was, and I didn't know whether I thought he was a genius. I didn't know how he was as a human being. I didn't know him. But all the tributes that have been written about him have been about what a nice guy he was, how supportive he was of other people, and it warmed my heart because I just adored his work.
Congratulations to Cyndi Lauper and Harvey Fierstein, the creators of the hit Broadway musical Kinky Boots. They're going to be honored with stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on April 11th.
You buy those, you know.
Really?
You have to pay for them.
Really?
Yes.
But don't you have to be selected based on some qualities?
Yes, your willingness to hand over a check.
Oh, come on. It's like buying indulgences.
All right, well, if we're going to talk about naivete, we will go to Patty Duke because Andy and I have a little different view of this.
Well, first of all, I love Patty Duke.
Me too. We totally agree on that.
We grew up with the Patty Duke Show. Let's just remind people of this wonderful series.
Meet Kathy, who's lived most everywhere, from Zanzibar to Berkeley Square. But Patty's only seen the sights a girl can see from Brooklyn Heights. What a crazy pair! But they're cousins.
wonderful show.
It
Very
was a
funny.
wonderful show.
Yeah, very good.
You know, for our age group, it was right on
They
point.
worked her ragged. I was in love with her boyfriend, Richard.
And I thought she was cute, but what we
Well, that's why we watched.
but Patty Duke was a great activist.
Yes.
She was an activist.
And a great actress, you know, Academy Award winner at the age of 16 for
The Miracle Worker.
Yes, and then she eventually
And then she went to do
played
the
Andy
Patty
Sullivan,
Duke.
you know, too.
And then, but after winning that Oscar, went on to do the Patty Duke show, and eventually became certainly a huge activist for mental health. She was diagnosed later as bipolar. But Sidney Sheldon, who created the Patty Duke show, they didn't know any of that then, but he said, you know, they're kind of two Patty Dukes.
Well, it's not, you know. She was very open about it, and she helped a lot of people.
Yeah. And she also was an AIDS activist. She was very outspoken on AIDS issue and gay rights.
I saw her being honored at a gay dinner in Los Angeles once when I was out there in the 80s. This is a long time ago. She was Grand Marshal of Pride parades. She was really involved.
Yes, and not afraid to speak out on all sorts of issues as opposed to those who don't. But when Andy and I heard about Patty Duke dying and mourned her death and talked about how much we loved her, Andy's immediate impulse was, let's show this little clip from the Patty Duke show, which has been around and shown a lot. And I said, no, let's show a clip from Valley of the Dolls, because nothing could be gayer and campier than Patty Duke as Neely O'Hara in Valley of the Dolls, a Judy Garland character.
Who are you hiding from, Helen? The notices couldn't have been that bad.
Sure just needs a little doctoring.
Don't worry, sweetheart. If it flops, I can always get you a job as understudy for my grandmother.
Thanks. I've already turned down the part you're playing.
Bull. Merrick's not that crazy.
You should know, honey. You just came out of the nut house.
It was not a nut house.
Look, they drummed you right out of Hollywood. So you come crawling back to Broadway. Well, Broadway doesn't go for booze and dope. Now you get out of my way, because I've got a man waiting for me.
That's a switch from the bags you're usually stuck with.
At least I never married one.
You take that back, you
Get your hands
off me. Oh, my God. It's a wig.
Back my head.
Her head is on his chin.
Give me
Hey, Digby's a redhead.
Give me that, damn you! What the hell are you doing in there?
Giving it a shampoo. Goodbye, pussycat.
God, she's throwing it in the can. I'll kill her.
How do you like that? It won't even go down the John.
Give me that wig.
Okay. You want it back? Here it comes. Special delivery. So long, Granny. I'll tell your boyfriend not to wait.
Who wrote that thing?
She was 20 years old when she did that.
Thing?
20.
Who wrote that screenplay?
That is the most famous cat fight.
I know. It's so cliched. Come on. It's not. I want to remember her as Helen Keller. I want to remember her as Patty and Kathy.
Patty and Kathy was not cliched?
No, I thought it was fun.
It was a sitcom.
Yeah, all right, but it was a good one.
Well, Valley of the Dolls was a classic, too. So thank you, Patty Duke, for all your performances.
All right, let's talk about some performances that we saw this week. Okay. We finally saw Eclipsed, which is the play about the Liberian Civil War in around 2003 with Lupita Nyong'o. These women are portraying the forced wives of a warlord. It's a pretty grim situation, which has a lot of humor in it.
I thought it turned out to be a sitcom.
The Real Housewives of Monrovia.
Yes. Or I thought I would call it the Golden Girls of Liberia. But I was frankly shocked at how it was played, mostly for humor. And I found
to relieve the tension, I think. I mean,
I guess so. But
it's a very, very serious. These are very serious issues. And
yeah, but it's not played for that.
It's also about how some of the women become fighters, fierce fighters against the Charles Taylor regime there.
Yeah, all that is the undercurrent and the reality, but man, they're just sitting around talking about their hair.
Well, you know, what are we going to do? So then there's Bright Star, which is the musical by Steve Martin and
Edie Brickell.
Edie Brickell. It's bluegrass.
Or Brickell, I'm not
now
sure.
we're not going to we're not going to tell you to boycott this, even though it's set in North Carolina. But it's about the supposedly true incident that strains credulity of a child getting lost and all this kind of stuff. It's you know what do I want to say about it? It's hard not to be moved by the ending. Let me just say that. But it's kind of
if you hang around that long.
No, it's kind of preposterous. I mean, the music is sort of is good, but it's kind of preposterous.
Okay.
That's gonna hurt it. And then Blackbird. Now this is a revival. It ought to be that's Jeff Daniels there and Michelle Williams. It ought to be renamed Squirm, because that's what you want to do through the whole thing. She plays a young woman who's confronting him about having screwed her when she was 12. She just finds him. He has changed his name. This is before sex offender registries. She finds him and confronts him in his office. Again, it's very serious stuff, very difficult to watch, but it didn't really keep me on the edge of my seat. But they're very able performances. I don't know why Jeff Daniels would want to do this again. He's the one who did it in the first place. Mm-hmm. Then I've got a picture of Marie Antoinette to show you. From this is a painting by Vigée Lebrun, the French court painter. This is a big woman's exhibit. She's a woman painter at the Metropolitan Museum to May 15th. It's controversial. This was the most controversial painting of Marie Antoinette because they portray her in a chemise. They immediately it was considered too risque. They immediately had to remove this. She redid the whole thing, painting her in a gown. But I show it to you just because these are the things that used to upset people in the late 1700s. Anybody trying to advance things around women, around sexual liberation, around anything like that. That's why, but it's a wonderful big exhibit there at the Met until
now we
May
have
15th.
controversies of Kim Kardashian tweeting naked pictures of herself.
Or Ted Cruz tweeting naked pictures of Mrs. Trump.
Yeah.
What else is going on in show business? Nathan Lane's coming back to Broadway in the fall in The Front Page with a great cast.
Yeah, who else?
John Slattery, John Goodman, Jefferson Mays, Rosemary Harris, and Sherry Renee Scott. That is quite a cast.
Now, are they going back to the original script where Hildy is a man? Is he Hildy, or is the Rosalind Russell the woman reporter version?
I don't know.
I'm going to guess that they're going back to the original, and Nathan Lane is playing the Rosalind Russell role.
Okay. Sean Hayes, who has been doing Act of God, which is the play that who did on Broadway? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know who it is. This is terrible. I'll think of this by the end. He's going to be doing it in New York now, starting May 28th for 14 weeks at the Booth Theater.
Neil Patrick Harris?
No.
Jesse Tyler Ferguson?
No, you know, the guy from the nerdy show with the scientists and, you know.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah.
Well, this is terrible when you get to be old, and you all know who we're talking about, so we don't have to say it who it is.
I do know who you mean.
And then there's a show called The Prom about a girl who becomes an outcast because she wants to take a female date to the prom. Mm-hmm. This is going to have this is going to be playing in Atlanta at the Alliance Theater in August, and it's going to come to Broadway, they say. And she involves a group of you know, celebrities, fading celebrities, in helping her cause, and it doesn't really work out. And that
sounds like an episode of The Golden Girls. Remember when Rose wanted Bob Hope to MC the talent show?
Yeah.
And said he was her father? We are deteriorating, so we will end this.
I'm just sitting here trying to remember who's the star of Act
Jim,
of God. Parsons! We got it! We don't
together as a team.
We will be back next week because we remembered Jim Parsons' name. And I liked him in that.
Yeah.
But Sean Hayes should be good.
Bye.
Bye.